Number 5695. And he washed his face. This signifies that it's so arranged, as is evident from the signification of to wash the face, here namely to arrange so as not to be seen. For the face was washed that no trace of tears might be seen. Consequently, it was arranged in this way. These things will of the Lord's divine mercy be explained in the following pages. Here something must be said about the correspondence of the face with interior things. The face is the outward representative of interior things, for the face is so formed that they appear in it as in a representative mirror, and that another may know how the person is disposed towards him, so that when he speaks he shows his feelings by his face as well as by his words. The most ancient people who were of the celestial church had such faces, and all the angels likewise, for they have no desire to conceal from others what they think, because they think kindly and only kindly of the neighbor, nor have they any lurking thought of wishing well to the neighbor for the sake of themselves. But the infernals, when not seen in the light of heaven, have a different face from that which corresponds to their interior things. The reason is that in the life of the body their faces had shown charity to the neighbor, merely for the sake of their own honor and gain, and yet they had never wished well to the neighbor except in so far as he favored them. The result is that the conformation of their faces is so much at variance with their interior things, that sometimes enmity, hatred, revenge, and murder are within, while their faces are so composed as to beam with love to the neighbor. This shows how great at the present day is the disagreement between interior and exterior things, resulting in the cultivation of such arts. Number 5696. And went out. This signifies by removal, as is evident from the signification of going out here, namely, removal. For one who removes himself goes out or withdraws. The internal sense is as follows. Joseph in the supreme sense represents the Lord. The 10 sons of Israel represent the truths and goods in the natural with those who are being regenerated. And Benjamin represents the intermediate. There is mercy from love towards the intermediate, because thereby the things beneath are regenerated. But the Lord's love and mercy are not perceived until conjunction through the intermediate has been effected. It is also arranged that they should not be perceived, for if they were, regeneration could not be effected. This arrangement is made by removal and concealment. Not that the Lord ever removes or conceals mercy, but when one who is being regenerated is admitted into his evils, it appears to him as if the Lord were remote and hidden. It is the evils that interpose and have this effect, just as dense clouds interpose between us and the sun, and make it seem distant and hide it. This is the concealment and removal that are meant. Number 5697. And he restrained himself. This signifies concealment, as is evident from the signification of to restrain oneself, namely, to conceal. For he who restrains himself conceals what he inwardly wills. What is here meant by concealment may be seen just above. Number 5698. And said, Set on bread. This signifies perception of conjunction through the intermediate with truths in the natural, as is evident from the signification of saying, namely, perception, see above, and from the signification of setting on bread, namely, conjunction through the intermediate with truths in the natural. The setting on of bread means the banquet itself, and banquets and feasts signify conjunction, specifically initiation to conjunction. That it is a conjunction through the intermediate with truths in the natural follows from the context. For Benjamin is the intermediate, and the 10 sons of Jacob are truths in the natural, as has already been shown. And because conjunction is through the intermediate, Joseph, on seeing Benjamin, commanded that they should eat with him. And when Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to him that was over his house, Bring the men to the house, slay and make ready, for the men shall eat with me at noon. Verse 16. Number 5699. And they set on for him alone, and for them alone. This signifies an outward appearance that the internal was separated from them, as is evident from the signification of setting on for him alone and for them alone, namely separation. And as the internal is represented by Joseph and the external by Israel's 10 sons, these words signify the separation of the internal from the external, but only in appearance, because he gave them food from his own table, sending portions to each. Number 5700. And for the Egyptians who did eat with him alone. This signifies the separation of the external knowledges which are in inverted order, as is evident from the representation of the Egyptians, namely external knowledges in inverted order, and from the signification of who did eat with him alone, namely separation. The Egyptians who did eat with him mean the Egyptians who ate at Joseph's house. That they did not eat with Joseph is plain, because they ate alone. Egypt or the Egyptians, in a good sense, signify the external knowledges of the Church, but in the opposite sense they signify the external knowledges which are in inverted order, and thus are contrary to the truths of the Church. In this sense, Egypt is mentioned in many passages of the Word. Egypt signifies these external knowledges, because the external knowledges of the ancient Church, which were representative and significative of celestial and spiritual things, and were cultivated among the Egyptians more than among others, were changed by them into magic. Hereby they completely inverted the external knowledges of the representative Church. External knowledges are said to be in inverted order when men abuse heavenly order to do evil. For heavenly order is that good be done to all. Hence it comes to pass that when they have inverted heavenly order, they at last deny divine things, the things of heaven, and consequently those of charity and faith. Such men know how to reason acutely and skilfully from external knowledges, because they reason from the senses. And to reason from these is to reason from external things, that is, from those of the body and the world, which take direct hold of man's senses and feelings. Unless such things have been illumined by the light of heaven, and thereby arranged in an entirely different order, they so obscure heavenly things for the man, that he not only comprehends none of them, but even wholly denies, and at last rejects them, and then, as far as he may, blasphemes them. When external knowledges are in order, they are arranged by the Lord in the form of heaven. But when they are in inverted order, they are arranged in the form of hell. And then things most false are in the midst, and those which confirm them are at the sides, while truths are outside. And because they are outside, they can have no communication with heaven, where truths reign. And therefore interior things are closed to such persons, for heaven is opened by means of things interior. Number 5701. Because the Egyptians cannot eat bread with the Hebrews. This signifies that they could not possibly be conjoined with the truth and good of the Church, as is evident from the representation of the Egyptians, namely those who are in inverted order, thus in evil and falsity, from the signification of to eat bread, namely to be conjoined, and from the representation of the Hebrews, namely those who are in genuine order, thus in the truth and good of the Church. The land of the Hebrews signifies the Church, and this because the Hebrew Church was the second ancient Church. Eating bread is mentioned here, and above setting on bread, because bread signifies all food in general, thus the banquet. Bread signifies all food and the banquet itself, because in the spiritual sense, bread is celestial love. And celestial love contains within it all things of good and truth, thus all things of spiritual food. That bread is celestial love may be seen above. Number 5702. Because this is an abomination to the Egyptians. This signifies that they are in opposition, as is evident from the representation of the Egyptians, namely those who are in inverted order, and from the representation of the Hebrews, to eat with whom was an abomination to the Egyptians, namely those who are in genuine order. Thus they are in opposition to each other, whence comes aversion, and at last abomination. In regard to this abomination, be it known that those who are in inverted order, that is, in evil and the derivative falsity, become at last so adverse to the good and truth of the Church, that when they hear of them, and especially when they hear of their interior things, they so greatly abominate them that they feel as it were a nausea and vomiting. This has been told and shown me, when I have wondered why the Christian world does not receive these interior things of the Word. There appeared spirits from the Christian world who, on being compelled to hear the interior things of the Word, felt so sick that they said they were going to vomit. And I was told that such is the Christian world at this day almost everywhere. The reason is that they have no affection of truth for truth's sake, still less any affection of good from good. When they think or quote anything from the Word or from their doctrine, they do so from habit acquired in early childhood, and from established usage. Thus it is an external without an internal. All things of the Hebrew Church that was afterwards instituted among Jacob's descendants were an abomination to the Egyptians, as is plain not only from their being unwilling even to eat with them, but also from the sacrifices which the Hebrew Church regarded as the chief part of its worship being an abomination to them. This is evident in Moses. Pharaoh said, "Go ye, sacrifice in the land." But Moses said, "It is not meet so to do, because we shall sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians to Jehovah our God. Lo, if we sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians before their eyes, will they not stone us?" The pasturing of flocks and a shepherd also were an abomination to them, as is plain in Moses. Every shepherd of a flock is an abomination unto the Egyptians. Thus the Egyptians abominated everything that belonged to that church. The reason was that at first the Egyptians had been among those who constituted the ancient representative church, but in course of time they rejected the God of the ancient church, that is, Jehovah or the Lord, and served idols, especially calves. And they also turned into magic the very representatives and significatives of the celestial and spiritual things of the ancient church, which they had learned when they belonged to that church. Hence order was inverted with them, and consequently all things of the church were an abomination to them. Number 5703. And they sat before him. This signifies that they were set in order by his presence, as is evident from the signification of to sit here, namely, to be set in order. For they were placed in order by Joseph, as appears from what follows. For they were amazed that the firstborn should sit according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And from the signification of before him, namely, by his presence. The case herein is this. In the supreme sense, Joseph represents the Lord, and Israel's sons, the goods and truths in the natural. When the Lord is present, then all things are set in order by his very presence. The Lord is order itself, and therefore where he is present, there is order, and where there is order, he is present. A description now follows of order itself, which is that truths be rightly subordinated to good. Number 5704. The firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. This signifies according to the order of truths under good, as is evident from the signification of sitting according to birthright and according to youth, namely, according to the order of truths under good. For the sons of Israel represent the truths of the church in their order. See the explanation of Genesis chapter 29 and 30. And therefore to sit according to their birth is according to the order of truths. But the truths of the church which the sons of Israel represent do not come into any order except through Christian good, that is, through the good of charity to the neighbor and of love to the Lord. For in good there is the Lord, and hence in good there is heaven. Consequently in good there is life, thus living active force, but never in truth without good. That good sets truths in order after its own likeness is very manifest from every love, even from the loves of self and of the world, thus from the love of revenge, of hatred, and of the like evils. They who are in these evils call evil good, because to them evil is delightful. This so-called good of theirs sets in order the falsities which to them are truths, so that they may support it, and at last sets all these falsities which they call truths in such an order as to carry conviction. But this order is the order in hell, whereas the order of truths under the good of celestial love is the order of heaven. And for this reason the man who has such order within him, that is, who has been regenerated, is called a little heaven, and moreover is a heaven in miniature, for his interior things correspond to the heavens. That it is good which sets truths in order is evident from the order in the heavens. There all the communities are set in order according to the truths under good, which are from the Lord. For the Lord is nothing but divine good. Divine truth is not in the Lord, but proceeds from him. And according to this divine truth under divine good, all the communities of heaven are set in order. That the Lord is nothing but divine good, and that divine truth is not in him, but proceeds from him, may be illustrated by comparison with the sun of the world. The sun is nothing but fire, and light is not in it, but proceeds from it. And likewise the things that are of light in the world, such as plant forms, are set in order by the heat which proceeds from the sun's fire, and is in its light, as is evident in spring and summer. As universal nature is a theatre representative of the Lord's kingdom, this also is universal. The sun represents the Lord, the fire of it his divine love, and the heat from it the good which flows therefrom, and the light the truths of faith. And because they are representative, therefore in the spiritual sense of the word, the sun means the Lord, and fire, love. Thus the sun's fire is representatively the divine love, and the heat from it is good from the divine love. That light represents truth may be seen above. See Numbers. Number 5705. And the men were amazed one at another. This signifies a change of state of each one among them, as is evident from the signification of to be amazed, namely, an unexpected and sudden change of state in the thoughts, which being the cause of the amazement is signified in the internal sense. And from the signification of one at another, namely, of each one among them. For the subject here is the order of truths under good caused by the presence of the internal. And as the order is new, there is therefore a change of state in each of them, which is signified by the men were amazed one at another. Number 5706. And he brought out portions unto them from before his face. This signifies goods applied to everyone from mercy, as is evident from the signification of portions, that is, of food, namely, goods. For all kinds of food signify goods, and drink of every kind signifies truths. That these are applied to everyone is plain from what follows, and is signified by he brought them out to them. and from the signification of face when predicated of the Lord, who is represented by Joseph, namely mercy. Number 5707. And he increased Benjamin's portion above the portions of them all. This signifies good for the intermediate above the goods for the truths in the natural, as is evident from the signification of portions, namely goods, from the representation of Benjamin, namely the intermediate, and from the representation of Jacob's 10 sons, above the portions of whom he made Benjamin's portion, namely truths in the natural. From this it is plain that his increasing Benjamin's portion above the portions of them all signifies good for the intermediate above the goods for the truths in the natural. The reason why there was good for the intermediate above the goods for the truths in the natural is that the intermediate is interior, and what is interior is richer in goods than that which is exterior. Few know how this is, namely that the interior is richer in goods and truths than the exteriors. The reason is that few, if any, have hitherto known what the interior is distinct from the exterior, and indeed so distinct that they can be separated, and that when separated the interior lives and the exterior dies, but that so long as they are conjoined the exterior lives from the interior. If this had been known, it might also have been known what the interior is compared with the exterior, that in the interior there are thousands of things which in the exterior appear as one. For the interior is in a purer sphere, and the exterior in a grosser. And that which is in a purer sphere is capable of receiving distinctly thousands of things more than that which is in a grosser sphere. Hence it is that when the man who has led a life of good comes after death into heaven, he can receive thousands of thousands more things of intelligence and wisdom and happiness than when he lived in the world. For in heaven he is in a purer sphere, and is in his interior things, and has put off the grosser things of the body. From all this it is now plain what is meant by good for the intermediate above the goods for the truths in the natural, which is signified by his increasing Benjamin's portion above the portions of them all. Number 5708. 5 measures. This signifies much increased, as is evident from the signification of 5, namely much, see below, and from the signification of measures, namely states of truth from good. 5 is a number that signifies a little, likewise some, and also much. Its signification depends upon its relation to the number of which it is a part. As a part of 10 it means the same as 10, but in a less degree, because it is half of the number 10. For as numbers formed by multiplication signify the same as their simple numbers, so numbers produced by division signify the same as their multiples. For instance, 5 the same as 10, 20, 100, 1,000, and so on. That 10 denotes what is full may be seen above. 5 more measures were given to Benjamin than to the rest of his brethren because of the signification in the internal sense. 10 measures could not have been given, for they would have been far too much. By tradition from the most ancient church, the ancients knew what some numbers signified, and therefore they made use of these numbers when anything occurred which they might signify, as here the number 5. And in other cases they applied several other numbers, as 3 to signify what is full from beginning to end, 7 to signify what is holy, 12 to signify all things in their complex. Number 5709. And they drank. This signifies the application of truths under good, as is evident from the signification of drinking, namely the communication and appropriation of truth, hence also its application. It is under good because all the application of truth is effected under good. Number 5710. And drank largely with him. This signifies abundantly, as is evident from the signification of to drink, namely, to apply truths under good. Hence, to drink largely denotes abundantly. From the things explained in this chapter, it is evident that the subject is initiation to the conjunction of the natural with the celestial of the spiritual. And in a subsequent chapter, the first conjunction is treated of. For the first conjunction is represented by Joseph's revealing himself to his brethren, the second by his going to meet his father and brethren, and bringing them down into Egypt. Continuation concerning correspondence. Here concerning the correspondence of diseases with the spiritual world. Number 5711. As regards the correspondence of diseases, be it known that all diseases in man have correspondence with the spiritual world. For without correspondence with the spiritual world, nothing in universal nature could exist, as it would have no cause from which to exist, or consequently from which to subsist. The things in nature are nothing but effects. Their causes are in the spiritual world, and the causes of these causes, which are ends, are in the interior heaven. Nor can the effect subsist unless the cause is constantly in it, because the effect ceases when the cause ceases. Regarded in itself, the effect is nothing else than the cause, but so clothed outwardly as to enable the cause to act as a cause in a lower sphere. Similar to the relation of the effect to the cause is that between the cause and the end. Unless a cause also exists from its cause, which is an end, it is not a cause. For a cause without an end is a cause in no order, and where there is no order, nothing is effected. From this it is now plain that regarded in itself an effect is a cause, and that regarded in itself a cause is an end, and that an end of good is in heaven and proceeds from the Lord. Consequently, that an effect is not an effect unless a cause is in it, and constantly in it, and that a cause is not a cause unless an end is in it, and constantly in it, and that an end is not an end of good unless the divine which proceeds from the Lord is in it. Hence it is also plain that as each and all things in the world have come forth from the divine, they continue to come forth from the divine. Number 5712. These things have been said in order to show that diseases also have correspondence with the spiritual world. Not a correspondence with heaven, which is the grand man, but with those who are in what is opposite, that is, with those who are in the hells. By the spiritual world in the universal sense is meant both heaven and hell. For when man dies, he passes out of the natural into the spiritual world. Diseases have correspondence with those because they correspond to the lusts and passions of the lower mind, which are also their origins. For the origins of diseases are, in general, intemperance, luxury of various kinds, mere bodily pleasures, as also feelings of envy, hatred, revenge, lewdness, and the like, which destroy man's interior things. And when these are destroyed, the exterior things suffer, and drag man into disease, and so into death. It is known in the Church that the death of man is from evils, or on account of sin, and it is the same with diseases, for these pertain to death. All this shows that even diseases have correspondence with the spiritual world, but with unclean things there. For diseases are in themselves unclean, because, as before said, they spring from unclean things. Number 5713. All the infernals induce diseases, but with a difference, because all the hells are in the desires and lusts of evil, and thus are contrary to the things of heaven. They therefore act upon man from what is opposite. Heaven, which is the grand man, holds all things together in connection and safety. Hell, being opposite, destroys and severs all things. Consequently, if the infernals come into close proximity, they induce diseases and at last death. Yet they are not permitted to flow into the solid parts of the body, that is, into the parts of which man's viscera, organs, and members consist, but merely into his lusts and falsities. It is only when the man falls ill that they flow into the unclean things of the disease. For as before said, nothing ever takes place in man without a cause in the spiritual world. If the natural in man were separated from the spiritual, it would be separated from all cause of existence, and thus from all that is vital. Yet this does not hinder man's being healed in a natural way, for the Lord's providence concurs with natural means. This has been proved to me by much experience, and so often and for so long that no doubt was left. For evil spirits from their abodes have been brought into contact with me often and long, and by their presence they induced pains and also diseases. I was shown where they were and what they were, and was told also whence they came. Number 5714. One who in the life of the body had been a consummate adulterer, and had taken the keenest delight in committing adultery with many women, whom he immediately afterwards discarded and loathed, persisted in such practices even to old age. Moreover, he had also been devoted to pleasures, and did not desire to act well to anyone or do him a service, except for his own sake, especially for the sake of his adultery. He was with me for several days, being seen under the feet, and when his vital sphere was communicated to me, whithersoever he came, he inflicted a pain in the periosteums and nerves, as for instance in the toes of the left foot. And when he was permitted to rise up, he inflicted pain in the parts where he was, especially in the periosteums in the loins, and in those of the breast under the diaphragm, and also in the interior of the teeth. While his sphere was operating, it caused also great oppression in the stomach. Number 5715. There once appeared a great quadrangular opening that slanted downward to a considerable depth. In the deep was seen a round opening, which presently was closed. From it exhaled a dangerous heat, collected from various hells, and arising from lusts of various kinds, namely arrogance, lewdness, adultery, hatred, revenge, quarrels, and strife. For from these arise in the hells such heat as was then exhaled. When it acted upon my body, it instantly brought on disease like that of a burning fever. But when it ceased to flow in, this semblance of disease at once ceased. When a man contracts a disease by his manner of life, an unclean sphere corresponding to the disease forthwith attaches itself, and is present as a fomenting cause. That I might be certain of this, there have been spirits with me from a number of hells, through whom the sphere of exhalations thence was communicated, and according as it was allowed to act upon the solid parts of my body, I was seized with oppression, pain, even with the corresponding disease, which ceased in an instant when those spirits were driven away, and that no room for doubt might be left, this has been done 1,000 times. Number 5716. There are also spirits not far away who infuse unclean chills, like those of a shivering fever, as I know by experience. The same spirits induce mental disturbance and also fainting. The spirits from this neighborhood are most malicious. Number 5717. There are some who not only relate to the most viscid substances of the brain, which are its excrement, but also know how to infect them as with poison. When such spirits arrive, they rush within the skull, and thence by continuity into the spinal marrow. This cannot be felt by those whose interiors are not open. It has been my lot plainly to feel the incursion, and also the effort to destroy me. But this was vain, because I was protected by the Lord. They strove to take away from me all the capacity of the intellect. I plainly felt their operation, and felt also pain from it, which however soon ceased. I afterwards spoke to them, and they were compelled to confess whence they were. They said that they lived in dark forests, where they durst not injure their companions, because in that case their companions were allowed to treat them cruelly. Thus they are kept in bonds. They are ugly and hairy, and have the face of a wild beast. I was told that they are such as had formerly slain whole armies, as we read in the Word. For they rushed into the chambers of everyone's brain, and inspired such terror and madness that they killed each other. At the present day such spirits are kept shut up within their own hell, and are not let out. These too bear relation to deadly tumours of the head within the skull. It was said above that they rush within the skull and by continuity therefrom into the spinal marrow. But be it known that it is only an appearance that the spirits themselves rush in, they being borne along outside by a way corresponding to the regions in question within the body, and this is felt within as an incursion. This sensation is due to correspondence, by which their operation is easily brought to bear upon the man against whom it is directed. Number 5718. There is a certain kind of spirits who, wishing to have sole dominion over all others, stir up for this purpose enmity, hatred, and strife among others. I have seen the consequent combats and wondered at them. I inquired who they were, and was told that they were the kind of spirits who excite such passions, because they are bent on being sole rulers, according to the maxim, divide and rule. It was also my lot to talk with them, and they immediately said that they ruled over all. But it was granted me to answer that they were insanity personified if they sought to establish their rule by such means. They talked with me from above at a middle height over the forehead. They spoke with fluency, because in the bodily life they had excelled in eloquence. I was instructed that they relate to the thick phlegm of the brain, that they take away its vitality by their presence and induce on it a torpor, whence come obstructions, giving rise to a number of diseases and dullnesses. It was noticed that they were devoid of all conscience, and that they made human prudence and wisdom to consist in stirring up enmity, hatred, and intestine strife, in order to rule. It was granted me to ask them whether they knew that they are now in the other life, where they are to live to eternity, and that there are spiritual laws there which utterly forbid such actions, and that while they were in the world they might among fools be esteemed wise, but that among the wise they are insane. This displeased them. I continued that they ought to know that heaven consists in mutual love, or love of one for another, whence there is order in heaven, whereby so many myriads are ruled as one, but that the contrary is the case with them, because they instigate others to breathe against their companions nothing but hatred, revenge, and cruelty. And they replied that they cannot be other than they are, whereupon it was granted me to say that they may know from this that every one's life remains with him after death. Number 5719. They who despise and ridicule the word and the letter, and still more who do this to the deeper sense contained therein, and consequently to the doctrines drawn from the word, and who at the same time love not the neighbor but self, bear relation to the vitiated things of the blood, which find their way into all the veins and arteries, and taint the whole mass. Lest by their presence they should bring anything of the kind upon man, they are kept separate from others in their own hell, and communicate only with those like themselves, for these plunge into the breath and sphere of that hell. Number 5720. Hypocrites have been with me. those namely who spoke reverently of divine things, and lovingly of the public and the neighbor, and bore witness to justice and equity, and yet in their heart despised and even derided these things. When they were permitted to flow into the parts of the body to which they correspond by opposition, they inflicted pain on the teeth, which was so severe when they drew very near that I could not bear it. And in proportion as they were removed, the pain ceased. This was demonstrated repeatedly, that no doubt might remain. Among them was one whom I had known in the life of the body, and I therefore spoke to him. And his presence also produced pain in the teeth and gums. When he was raised upwards to the left, the pain attacked the left jaw, and invaded the bone of the left temple, down to the bones of the cheek. Number 5721. The most stubborn of all are those who during the life in the body had appeared more just than others, and had also occupied positions of dignity, and on both accounts had authority and weight, and yet had believed nothing, and had lived a life of the love of self merely, being inflamed with inward hatred and revenge against all who did not favor them or pay them reverence, and still more against those who in any way opposed them. If in these they detected any blemish, they made an enormous evil of it, and defamed them, even though they might be among the best of citizens. In the other life such persons speak as they had done in this world, with authority and weight, and as if from a sense of justice. Wherefore many suppose that they are more to be believed than others. Yet they are most malicious. When they come in contact with a man, they induce great pain by weariness, which they continually augment and increase to utter exasperation. This induces so great a weakness of mind, and therefore of body, that the man can scarcely rise from his bed. This was shown me by such weakness seizing me when they were present, and yet ceasing according to the degree in which they were removed. They use many an artifice to infuse weariness and consequent weakness among themselves and their associates, especially by disparagements and defamations whose common sphere they inject. When these persons reason privately about divine worship, faith, and eternal life, they utterly reject them, and this they do as from preeminent wisdom. In the other life they are willing to be called devils, provided they are allowed to rule over the hells, and thus from supreme power, as they believe, to act against the divine. Inwardly they are filthy, because preeminently in the love of self, and thereby addicted to hatred, revenge, and cruelty against all who do not pay court to them. They are severely punished, as I have also heard, until they desist from leading others astray by an assumption of justice. When this is taken away from them, they speak in another tone. They are afterwards cast out from the world of spirits, and are then borne towards the left, and there cast down deep into hell. Their hell is towards the left, at a mid-distance. Number 5722. There are others who in the life of the body have been most filthy, their filthiness being unmentionable. By their presence and influx into the solid parts of a man's body, they induce a weariness of life, and such torpor in the members and limbs that he cannot rise from his bed. They are very stubborn, and unlike other devils, persist in spite of penalties. They appear beside the head, and as if lying there. When they are driven away, this is not done suddenly but gently, and they are then by degrees rolled down towards lower places. And when they come into the deep, they are tormented there so severely that they cannot but desist from infesting others. Their delight in doing evil surpasses all others. Number 5723. There were spirits with me who induced so severe an oppression in the abdomen that I felt as if I was dying. The oppression was so great that with others it would have brought on a swoon. But they were removed, and then it at once ceased. I was told that these spirits in the life of the body had been devoted to no serious pursuit, even a domestic one, but solely to pleasure, and besides had lived in foul idleness and sloth, and had not cared anything for others. Moreover, they had despised their faith. In short, they had been animals, not men. Their sphere produces numbness in the members and joints of the sick. Number 5724. There are in the brain viscidities in which is mingled something spirituous or vital, and these viscidities, expelled from the blood there, pass first into the meninges, then into the tubules, part of them into the great ventricles of the brain, and so on. The spirits who relate by correspondence to those viscidities which have something spirituous or vital in them appear almost directly above the middle of the head at a mid-distance, and are such that from habit acquired in the life of the body they stir up scruples of conscience, and intrude them on occasions which are not matters of conscience, and in this way burden the conscience of the simple. They do not know what ought to engage the conscience, but make everything that occurs a matter of conscience. These spirits induce a sensible anxiety in the part of the abdomen beneath the region of the diaphragm. They are also present in temptations, and induce anxieties, at times unbearable. Those of them who correspond to the viscous phlegm of less vitality then keep the thought fixed on these anxieties. Moreover, when I discoursed with them, in order to learn their character, they tried in various ways to burden my conscience. This had been the delight of their life, and I noticed that they do not listen to reason, and that they do not possess that more universal view of things that would enable them to see the particular ones. Number 5725. It has been granted me to learn by experience what in the spiritual sense an inundation or deluge is. Such an inundation is twofold, one of lusts and the other of falsities. That of lusts belongs to the will part, and is on the right side of the brain, but that of falsities belongs to the intellectual part, and is on the left side of the brain. When a man who has lived in good is remitted into his selfhood, thus into the sphere of his own life, there then appears as it were an inundation, and when he is in this inundation he is indignant and angry, thinks restlessly, and desires impetuously. This takes place in one way when the left side of the brain, where there are falsities, is inundated, and in another when the right side, where there are evils, is inundated. But when the man is kept in the sphere of life which he had received from the Lord by regeneration, he is then entirely out of such an inundation, and is, as it were, in a serene and sunny, cheerful and happy state, thus far away from indignation, anger, unrest, lusts, and the like. This is the morning or spring time of spirits. The other is their evening or autumn. I was allowed to perceive that I was outside this inundation, and this for quite a long time, while I saw that other spirits were in it. Afterwards, however, I myself was immersed, and then I noticed the appearance of an inundation. In such an inundation are those who are in temptations. In this way too I was instructed what the flood signifies in the word, that the last posterity of the most ancient people, who were of the Lord's celestial church, were completely inundated with evils and falsities, and thus perished. Number 5726. As death is from no other source than sin, and sin is all that is contrary to divine order, therefore evil closes the very smallest and most invisible vessels, of which are composed the next larger ones, these also being invisible. For the vessels which are smallest of all and wholly invisible are continued from man's interiors. Hence comes the first and inmost obstruction, and hence the first and inmost vitiation of the blood. When this vitiation increases, it causes disease, and finally death. If, however, man had lived a life of good, his interiors would be open to heaven, and through heaven to the Lord. And so too would the very least and most invisible little vessels. The traces of the first threads may be called little vessels on account of the correspondence. In consequence, man would be without disease, and would merely decline to extreme old age, until he became again a little child, but a wise one. And when the body could no longer minister to his internal man or spirit, he would pass without disease out of his earthly body into a body such as the angels have, thus out of the world directly into heaven. Number 5727. This is the end of the subject of correspondence. In the following pages, at the close of the chapters, by the Lord's divine mercy, I will speak of the spirits and angels with man, then of influx, and of the intercourse of the soul with the body, and afterwards of the inhabitants of other earths. This is the end of Volume 7.